All right, we're looking at the Unit 2 discussion, even though it says Unit 4 here, about complex numbers. And so we know that numbers are undefined when they are negative under the radical sign. But let's look at the rest of these situations here. So it says, if you're dealing with radical -1 or square root of -1, would it be defined if you multiplied it by 2? So if I multiplied that by 2, I would write it as 2 radical -1. Since there's still a negative in the radical, then it is undefined. Now it says, would it be defined if you subtracted some real number from it? So that would be the square root of -1, let's say -5. We can leave it written like this. The square root is only over this -1 here. So since there's still a negative in the radical, it is also undefined. Now it says, would it be defined if you squared it? So let's do square root of -1 squared. Well, that would be square root of -1 times the square root of -1, which when we multiply square roots, we just multiply what's inside. -1 times -1 is a positive 1. Now all of a sudden it is defined, right? Now it says, would it be defined if you cubed it? So we got square root of -1 cubed, which is square root of -1 times the square root of -1 times the square root of -1. Once again, we multiply all the inside. So -1 times -1 times -1. And that -1 times -1 is positive 1 times another -1 is -1. Now we are undefined again. Okay, now it says, think about raising this number to any positive integer. So raising it to 2, raising it to 3, or any number. When would it be defined? When would it not be defined? So now let's look. If we were to do, let's say, square root of -1 to the 4th power, if we just keep going, square root of -1 times -1 times -1 times -1. -1 times -1 is positive 1, times -1 is -1, times another -1 is positive 1 again. So square root of 1, so this is defined. So what we can see is that squaring it or putting it to the power of 2 is defined. The power of 3 is undefined. The power of 4 is defined. So we can make a pattern here. So you're going to think about what pattern we have. Now, what method would you use to square the value 3 plus square root of -1? Now this is in your tutorial, so you can just take a look in the operations tutorial and see what they say about this, okay? So hopefully this was helpful.